That's why I think it takes me so long to wake up.
It's not cold in here.
Well, it's not cold in here, but it's cold outside. It just kind of hits you.
Makes it harder to get out of bed. I hear you.
Yeah, it's just
We're happy to be here, though.
Happy to be here. Feeling alive, feeling well. We've got some really important matchups coming up this weekend, Week 17 in the NFL. None bigger, though, in my mind, because I am a Chicago Midwest girl through and through, than Packers and Bears on Sunday. Playoff implications for both teams. For the Packers to lock up the 1 seed so they could get that first round bye and home field advantage, and then for the Bears to simply get in. They got to win, and then they're in, which could be a tall task.
Aaron Rodgers stands in the way of win or get in for your Chicago Bears. What has history shown you?
Don't do that.
With Aaron Rodgers
Don't do that.
Facing off against the Chicago Bears.
This is like me coming. Jordan's a Bengals fan. This is like me coming at you like, well, what about even though the Bengals just beat the Steelers? What of the Steelers? I mean, what kind of giant killers are the Steelers to your Bengals? Like, what the Packers have done to my Bears far too many times in my lifetime.
Hey, Trubisky truthers out there, what an opportunity!
Which you're becoming slowly.
No.
Slowly, you are.
I think it's interesting. Trubisky's played himself into a position here when he was written off, where this guy was for sure not going to be in a Bears uniform next year, that his value in this league has risen in the second half of the year, most especially in these last few games, never mind the opponents being not very strong ones. His value in this league has improved, and he's now reaching the threshold, approaching this game versus the Packers that has a playoff vibe, because if you win, you're in. And if Trubisky can have a hand successfully in advancing the Bears, whoo, Bears are going to have a hard time letting him walk. And there's going to be a lot of teams out there that want him. So Mitchell Trubisky versus Aaron Rodgers could be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, that doesn't sound as sexy as I think you want it to sound. It really does not.
I don't have any skin in the game.
Look, the Bears offense, no doubt, has been much better over the last couple of weeks. They have played those 3 losing teams in their 3-game win streak, 3 teams that are not going to the postseason. And so when we look at this Bears-Packers matchup, we realize that it is not really as it seems yet. Now, could the Bears surprise us all and go out and win against the Packers? I don't think that's out of the question. My dad, as you know, is a diehard Packers fan, and he says this
lives up there in Wisconsin.
Makes him nervous because he feels like the Packers have a tendency to sometimes lose to teams that they should beat.
Not the Bears, though.
Not the Bears. The Bears is not.
Pops-in-law, not the Bears.
Is definitely not one of them. That is for sure. What's interesting, though, for me, someone who's covered and followed this team for a really long time, is that normally I'm nervous about the offense because we've seen it be inept. We've seen it have no rhythm at all. We've seen whoever's at quarterback, be it Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles, not be able to find receivers, not establish a run game, and that has totally been flipped upside on its head over the last 3 weeks. More nervous am I about the defense and them playing to the caliber that they can play at. This was a top 10 defense a year ago, creeped up into the top 5 the year before that. They have so many players that can get after the quarterback, that can stop the run, that can stop guys on the outside, that can literally do it all, that you just haven't seen click on all cylinders in the last couple of weeks. Need to see it.
But why is that to a degree? Yeah, sure, there's been a drop-off in a defense. You can't play at that high level for that many consecutive seasons. Eventually, you're going to start to see some fall-off, and you have. But it's also come, the defense has also dropped off at the expense of, this is an offense that hasn't given them much of a rest in any games. When you consistently have 3 and outs and that defense is spending all the time on the field, they can't be the disruptors that they typically are because fatigue sets in. That's no excuse completely, but it's definitely a part of the situation there. When you have a competent offense, when you have a productive offense like the Bears have shown in these last few weeks, it alleviates some of that pressure. It allows for rest on the sidelines for a defense and come out there energetic, engaged, and be the disruptive defense that it has been in those years past to generate takeaways, to give a short field, to provide a propped-up offense to go out there, and they're working together, and that's something you haven't seen in Chicago. That being said, one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL behind Aaron Rodgers' arm, Aaron Jones in the backfield, a little bit of A.J. Dillon, Devontae Adams, who's as good a go-to guy as you can have. It's going to be quite the task for that Bears defense in this one with a lot on the line.
Attention, Robert Quinn. This would be a good game for you to show why we paid you a lot of money during the offseason and had you come to Chicago.
You haven't paid him anything. What do you mean we?
Yeah, I haven't. This would be a good game. Please show up, Robert Quinn. Aaron Rodgers, a fantastic game. No turnovers yet again. He continues to play at an extremely high level, but he really put it on display on Sunday night against the Titans. And I think after that game, I know you agree with me because in case you don't know, we're married and we watch games together, typically, unless I'm mad at him and then he has to do it in another room.
It's true. Very true.
Aaron Rodgers has won, in my mind, the MVP. I mean, that's just a foregone conclusion at this point. I don't think Mahomes has played to the level that he's capable of or that we've seen in years past. And I think...
that just goes to show you the expectation for Patrick Mahomes.
Spoiled.
Hasn't played to the level that you expect him to.
It's true, though. He has more turnovers than Rodgers. I mean, I think Rodgers
has thrown for more touchdowns, less interceptions. I think by a couple hundred yards, Mahomes hasn't beat in yardage.
He had his 13th game with 100-plus passer rating this year. I mean, that's insane. That's tied for the most such games in a single season in the Super Bowl era.
What did you think was going to happen to arguably the most talented quarterback to ever play the position? What do you think was going to happen when they go out and grab a guy like Jordan Love, which may have been the right move? I think a lot of people think it wasn't the right move, and I totally understand why. How did you think Aaron Rodgers was going to respond? How did you think one of the greatest quarterbacks ever was going to come out and play? You saw how cerebral he was in handling the news. He wasn't fiery, knee-jerk reaction. He was very patient, very cerebral with his approach and how he handled it.
Really? Because I felt like he let his feelings be known.
But very, very calculated. Very calculated.
Okay, fine.
My man knew how he was going to approach this, and I'm excited to talk to one of his former teammates because I want to know how the Green Bay Packers are going to go about the business of keeping him around for a while because he's got a lot of great football left in him.
Okay, so with that being said, let's welcome in ESPN Milwaukee radio host. He's also a former Packers offensive lineman, Mark Tauscher. He joins us on the Goodyear Hotline. Good morning to you, Mark. So you heard our conversation. Good morning. You heard our conversation here about Aaron Rodgers, and I ask you the same thing I just posed to my husband here. After Sunday's performance against the Titans, do you think he's locked up the MVP?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And when you start looking at the big picture on how this season has went, obviously Patrick Mahomes has been in that same conversation, but you saw on Sunday night with the weather and how everything that this team has been asked, he has answered the bell. And I don't think there's a question in his 15, 16 years, he's never played better. And this season, I think he has taken it, the things you guys just mentioned, Jordan Love, the draft, the second year, you don't know what's going to end up happening. He is playing at the highest level I think he's played at in his entire career. And I think he's as deserving this year as he's been on the other two times that he's won that award.
Mark, I know you're an offensive guy. You're an offensive lineman, had a great career, do a great job in the media side of things up there at ESPN Milwaukee. But I want to talk about the Packers defense because I feel like so much we lead with naturally Aaron Rodgers and that productive offense. But I feel like this defense doesn't get the respect it deserves. I mentioned how it's a top 10 total defense in the NFL, and I got hate mail on Twitter. Like, what are you talking about? This Packers defense is awful. It's not, though. Can you tell people why it's an undervalued defense for the Packers?
Well, I think, early in the season there have been question marks, and I thought last week with what Tennessee brought to the table, there was a lot of things that fans, that everybody wanted to see answered. And I think having what the Darnell Savage, his elevation of his game, but Rashawn Gary being able to set the edge, doing some different things, stopping the run, it's starting to all come together. They're creating turnovers, which is the one thing early in the season that we didn't see with this team. Mm-hmm. So now that you're getting, stopping the run, you're seeing the turnovers start getting created. If this defense forces turnovers, they're not getting beat. Yeah. And I think the games that Green Bay has lost this year, they've turned the football over. And Aaron Rodgers does not do that. So when you start factoring all those things in, this defense has gotten better stopping the run. But I think the biggest thing is they're creating turnovers. And when they start doing that, this team is going to be incredibly difficult, especially people that have to come into Lambeau Field and try to win a playoff game.
Okay, well,
yeah, Shay, because 29th currently in generating turnovers is that defense. Mark makes a great point. If they start doing that too, I already have them winning the Super Bowl. Go ahead and give them back-to-back Super Bowls.
Oh, please. Well, all this news really makes me nervous as a Bears fan and someone from Chicago for this weekend's game. I feel lucky that it's actually in Chicago and not at Lambeau, Mark, but heading into this game, I guess maybe you could take me into the locker room a little bit or maybe take me into the mindset a little bit since you've played in this rivalry. Both teams have something to play for. Bears into the playoffs. Obviously, for the Packers, it's for seeding. What do you anticipate out of this matchup on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more difficult than people. I think you look back 3 or 4 weeks ago when the Bears were still struggling on offense. I think people kind of assumed that this was going to be one of those games. But the Bears, to their credit, have fought back. Trubisky's done a nice job. I think their offense has evolved. They're trying to get that running game going. So I think this is going to be tough. And, luckily, I think the fact that these two teams know each other as well as they do, and that you're going into the weather is not going to be some big factor for the Bears as well. But anytime there's desperation and the Bears' playoff lives are on the line, but on the flip side of that, Green Bay knows how important that one seed is. Everything that you're hearing up in Green Bay this week is this is the playoff game, and getting that one seed this year is as important as it's ever been because you only have one team that doesn't play. I just think Green Bay is rolling right now. The offense, everything seems to be, that secret sauce seems to be coming together. And I think this team knows how precious this stuff is. And I think Chicago's going to have their hands full.
Mark, a couple of years left on that deal for Aaron Rodgers up there in Green Bay. Seeing how he's playing right now, clearly a conversation is going to be had in Green Bay. What does his future look like with Jordan Love waiting in the wings?
That's the question. And I think, for right now, it's enjoy the time you have with Aaron Rodgers because I think that draft night, I think everybody started looking at it like, wow, this thing, this could be coming to an end. But when you put a season like this up, I think it's going to be really difficult to any transition plans you have. And I don't think there were necessarily next year. But if you look at his contract, it's down